what is orthodoxy? It's a big question in the States. There's a whole controversy with open orthodoxy. Is that orthodoxy? Is it not orthodoxy? And stuff like that. There's another question that exists. There's a book I'm reading called Off the Derech, where one of the things that's asking the question is, what does off the derech mean? What defines someone as orthodox, unorthodox, whatever? Okay. I don't want to deal with the book right now, but I'm trying to say is that the question exists in terms of definitions. What makes someone from? What that makes someone not from? What is the definition of frumkeit and stuff like that? But the first issue is, why does that make a difference? Okay, why do you need to define anyone as anything?
Need to be so many. Is it more beneficial to categorize? Like, will that help end result, or
or what's the point of categorization? And that's perhaps a big issue that exists. Some people need to categorize for their own structure in their own life, for their own even their own understanding of themselves. In other words, they need very structural rules for their own identity and so forth. But the fact is what really is the need for definitions, okay? And that becomes a very very powerful issue. Like, is it from? Is he from? Is he not from? Is he Jewish? Is he Jewish? Is he not Jewish? And so forth. Now, I think I might have mentioned this before. When I was in university, this is like in a broader sense, I worked for a professor who was pretty much of a liberal, really nice guy, and he had an interesting background, but he prided himself in how many third world countries he worked in, and so forth and so forth, and friends he had across the world, did not have any racial sense of biases or stuff like that. And he was really nice he was a really nice guy, and I enjoyed working for him. I knew that one day he was going to come up to me and ask me that question. Will I only go out with a Jewish girl? I knew that was going to come up one day. Why? Because, and a lot of Jews don't recognize that, is the concept of only dating within your race is somewhat, it's challenged. It's like if you go up to someone and say, can blacks marry whites? You say no, you're considered racist. Why not? Right? Why do you only need to marry this person or that person? Okay? Okay, so the fact is, I knew one day he was going to come up to me and eventually ask me that question. So I thought about it, how I was going to respond. And lo and behold, one day he came up with that question. And I answered, the way I answered was, it basically said, I want to have a certain lifestyle when I'm married, okay? In order to have that lifestyle, I have to marry a woman who will share my values, okay? And therefore, it doesn't matter to me whether I marry a woman who's born Jewish, not born Jewish. I don't care about those things and so forth and so forth. What I do care about is the fact that I do want to follow a certain lifestyle, and I want to marry someone, I would like to marry someone who wants to have a similar lifestyle, which would be a certain Orthodox Jewish lifestyle. And that he understood. And because basically I wasn't discriminating based upon this person's good, this person's bad, and so forth and so forth. I was giving an answer based upon conceptual idea of what I want. So when people ask questions, is he from, is he not from, is he Jewish, or he's not Jewish, question is, what is legitimate about the question, or what is not legitimate about the question? What are you really asking or not asking? Okay, that's one issue. Now, It also gets into group definitions. In this issue in the States about open orthodoxy, is it orthodox, is it not orthodox, or whatever? Yeah.
What is open orthodoxy?
Open orthodoxy is a movement in the States of certain Orthodox rabbis that basically is much more liberal than more mainstream Orthodox rabbis. Okay.
So like modern Orthodox.
It's
or somewhere
a little bit.
that?
It's a little bit different than modern Orthodox. You would find the open Orthodox rabbis as being modern Orthodox in a broad sense, but they take positions which are somewhat more liberal. Like, for example,
and they've classified themselves as...
Well, they call their group open orthodoxy because they're much more open to they're much more open in their relationship, let's say, with Reform and Conservative Judaism. They're much more, basically they're much more involved in women's rights. Like, for example, the controversy over women rabbis, right? Where there are now women who are being ordained as Orthodox. What you would call the group that is behind that approach is open orthodoxy. Okay? Now, they believe that this is acceptable in orthodoxy and so forth. There's a controversy because...
But they probably still put limitations because of it being...
Yeah, well, they're not saying a woman could be an aide. They're not saying like
them coming to the Amud or something and laning or something.
Well, there is something called the partnership minyan, which gives aliyahs to women. See, that's an example of a view that would be associated with open orthodoxy. It basically is at the edge of halacha in terms of women's rights.
And what about like praying for the...
No, the fact is
that is also part
the fact is open orthodoxy follows. In other words, they try and define whatever is halachically permissive for women. So basically, in what you may call the partnership minyan, they will have women leading Baruch She'amar, if I know correctly, but of course they can't lead from Yishtabachan because that's okay. So singing, they most likely apply the concept that Kol Isha doesn't apply when it's Shir Yisheva V'Huda to a Kodesh Baruch Hu. In every one of their arguments, they have halachic arguments. Like, for example, they have an halachic argument of how women can get aliyahs, but obviously a woman cannot lead the davening. Like, she can't be the shliach tzibur for Shachris or Musaf because that's not permitted within halacha. So they have their arguments within halacha of what women can do or not do. Now, pardon?
Was Baruch She'amar okay? And is it really?
Because Baruch She'amar, the argument is because Baruch She'amar is not really a davar minyan. Baruch She'amar, when someone's leading Baruch She'amar, it's the prelude to davening. Davening is a chakras which begins with the Berachos Kriya Shema. The Baruch She'amar, Sukkei de Zimra, is really what you do be a chidus, an introduction to davening, and the chazan in Sukkei de Zimra is not doing a davar shebekdusha. He's just leading people in their private davening of the prelude to chakras, but it's not a davar shebekdusha. Therefore, that's their argument. Now, what? No, you can't do Baruch Hu because it's a davar shebekdusha, and they don't count for a minyan.
It's earlier, so like a man would have to say it, and then they can continue.
No. Baruch Hu is after Baruch She'amar.
It's after, okay.
Right?
Depending on
So getting back
Right?
to the different types of denominations.
Okay, so the fact is open orthodoxy has halakhic arguments, what they feel are halakhic arguments, which are somewhat controversial, a lot to do with women's rights and stuff like that. There's a lot of controversy over open orthodoxy. There are Rabbanim who feel open orthodoxy has crossed the line. A lot of them, Rabbi Dr. David Berger, who wrote the book against the Mashiachas. Rabbi Dr. David Berger is the dean of Bernard Revel. He was the dean, I don't know if he still is, but he was the dean of Bernard Revel Graduate School University. And when the whole Mashiachas trend started with Chabad, he wrote a book about how Jews were being too tolerant towards Chabad.
Wow.
Because this idea of a dead Mashiach is clearly contrary to Jewish thought. And he felt, and his book basically said that Jews who should be very much against Chabad, specifically Chabad Mashiachas. Now he himself believes almost that every Chabadnik is really Mashiachas, but the fact is that he himself, but the point is his book is that we should not tolerate Mashiachas because they're contrary, that it's heretical to believe in a dead Mashiach. Okay, so he had this argument. It was interesting because Rabbi Emanuel Shochet, he wrote a response.
He was also very against.
He was very against Mashiachas, but he said they weren't heretical. He said they were wrong, but they weren't heretical. Okay, heretical means that heretics is outside the pale. In other words, it's not an acceptable opinion within Judaism, within halakhic Judaism. So he was very much against Mashiachas, but he didn't think that a person who was Mashiachas was someone who was heretical, was a heretic. David Berger, Rabbi Berger, believes that these such individuals are heretics, and that Jews are too accepting to accept such individuals. Orthodox Jews have become too accepting, and these people should be ostracized from the Jewish community. So he basically take that stand, and he wrote an article saying that in open orthodoxy, there's certain positions that he's heard come out of open orthodoxy that he doesn't disagree with, some positions he disagreed with, but doesn't think it's heresy. But he says that there seems to be certain positions that they take which are heretical, and from an orthodox perspective, and that they have to. The leadership of that group, if they want to stay within the general parameters of orthodoxy, has to draw the line of where of that position. And there were responses back against him and stuff like that from the open orthodoxy group.
So the question that arises again is the focal point of this shir, of this topic, is who's deciding who's telling him that he's wrong? Who's considered the veld of?
Well, there was someone, I read a response, it's actually going to be up on, I'm going to give the link to this response, I'm going to put it up in the next day or so it's, if anyone wants to look good, somewhere around August, today's August 25th, so if you ever go to Nishma blog, you can look for August 26th, 2015, around that date you'll see a link to the response to Rabbi Berger from someone within the open orthodoxy camp, Rabbi Yisachar Katz, and then you'll see my comments on Rabbi Katz's comments. The fact is, on the issue that Rabbi Berger is concerned about, I actually side a little bit with Rabbi Berger, because this is really the issue, is defining the group. The fact is that in certain ways, what's happening here is what is orthodoxy. The fact is is that that's the issue. And just because someone wants to call themselves Orthodox or non-Orthodox, well, what does it mean? First of all, what's the significance of a title, or what does it mean? And it's the same question talking in terms of any type of identity. What's the identity of a group? What's the identity of individuals and so forth?
Well, another maybe question that arises is it harmful to then categorize yourself, because then it could take it to certain extremes.
Right, yeah, and the fact is, and also when you define groups, I mean, when you define things, sometimes people define themselves too narrowly, and therefore you basically cut off someone who really does hold your principles. What are the principles? What are the principles you're defining in terms of that identity and so forth? See, I said beforehand with this, what I said beforehand with the marriage situation, and I sort of said, listen, I can, I want a certain lifestyle, therefore that's why I would marry someone has to be Orthodox or whatever. But the truth is, I'm talking about my own lifestyle. The truth is that whether this woman defines herself as Orthodox or not, does that really matter? What matters is I'm saying, listen, this is the lifestyle I want to follow. So is that person want to, is this person going to support? I'm not talking about critiquing through identity or stuff like that. I was basically saying, I was basically saying to this person that my choosing someone at a certain viewpoint, it's not because I'm saying other people are bad. It's I'm basically saying, hey, this is something I want. Be the same as me saying, listen, playing golf is very important to me, so I want to marry someone who also wants to spend their weekends at the golf course.
Between doing something you want and something that is right, and doing it
exactly.
May not even want to.
So the point is, my response to that person who asked me that question, in order to sidestep the issue of critique and racism, stuff like that, was basically to turn it into a personal question of what kind of lifestyle do I want. The point is, though, is when you start getting into definitions in a broader sense, what are really the benefits of those definitions? What are you really asking with those definitions? Okay, in other words, whether open orthodoxy is orthodox or not, what difference does it make? Okay, why do I have to have an answer, or to whether it's orthodox or not? What difference does it make? The fact is that guy's a good guy, not a good guy. Like what do we need by any group definitions? And that's what you're asking. That applies on an individual basis, and it applies on a group basis. Okay. So when you ask the question, is someone from, what does it mean to be from? If you ask the question, is this group Orthodox or not, what are you really saying, and so forth? And in certain ways, the definition may be different for different people. I mean, the fact is some people are saying they're Orthodox, and then you find out that their definition of Orthodox is the Torah Karta. So that's I'm Orthodox. What does that mean? And anyone who doesn't believe this is not Orthodox. So if you ask the Torah Karta, they'll tell you anyone who's a Zionist is not Orthodox. Okay, so what does the term mean, and what difference does it make? So the fact is you have to try and figure out what exactly you're trying to define with any definition, group definition or individual definition. What are you trying to define? So in certain ways, people are trying to define group membership in such a way that it is protected. I mean, I'm looking at it from a more, let's say, a more negative perspective at first.
Why?
Because I want to develop from the negative for a sec. A lot of people, when they want to create definitions, a lot of their motivation is something where they're basically trying to say something I'm okay, and people who are part of this group are okay, and people who aren't part of this group are not okay. There's a lot of times it comes out of some kind of self. I'm working from the idea that a lot of times we have group definitions because there's a desire for group centricity, for ethnocentricity. A lot of people, when they say, "Are you Jewish or you're not Jewish?" It's like if you're Jewish, it's good, and if not Jewish, you're not good, and I'll treat Jews better than I'll treat non-Jews, or the other way around with any group. One of the problems that always exists with any group definitions is the problem that is a group definition trying to create a division between people and trying to give certain members of a group a greater standing.
So that's a combination of both?
Well, the starting point of where you get into issues of racism, or you get into issues where you have any type of group definitions, usually comes from a person says, "I'm okay because I'm part of this group, you're not okay because you're not part of this group." And we Jews have suffered through that through the ages, okay? Okay, religiously.
We ourselves do that too.
So that becomes part of the issue. Okay, in other words, are we when we ask the question of is someone Jewish or not, are we asking that question in the same way as someone who's basically asking that question from their perspective to try and have some kind of saying the Jews shouldn't be part of the group? In other words, what I'm trying to say is that if you look at humanity as a group as a whole, and anytime you have group definitions within humanity, one of the challenges of group definitions is the fact that, as an aside, members of the group somehow always feel that they're better than people who aren't members of the group. In other words, whites and blacks. What happened in the history of whites and blacks? Whites felt that they were better than blacks, right? The Japanese felt they were better than all the Asians, and not only that, they had to go teach Japan felt they were spreading the greatness of the Japanese society to the rest of the world, through the Asian world, through the Second World War. I'm reading a book now about the British in the Middle East, and a lot of these people, from Britain, felt that this was the great benefit of being, great responsibility of being British. We have to go teach these lesser people the good values of being British. Not that they'll actually equal being British, but we got to try and share our knowledge. In the meantime, we'll be better than them, and we'll treat them as second-class citizens and so forth. It happens in a lot of situations. That group definitions mean if you're part of this group, it's better than not to be part of this group. Then someone who's not part of this group is somewhat ostracized, or somewhat secondary, or whatever. So the challenge that exists when you start asking questions, are you Jewish or are you from, or stuff like that, is almost like you're making a definition that says, and therefore this person is better than the other person. That's a natural consequence of any group definition. So the challenge that exists from a Jewish perspective, from any perspective, is that what you're trying to do with group definitions? Is that what you're trying to do with individual definitions? Are you basically trying to say, is it basically trying to say, I'm right and you're wrong, or I'm better than you, or so forth and so forth, by this group definition? And the fact is in our world today, that was normal. That was normal in the
well, still is
European,
kind of normal.
Right.
It's just not shown on such an extreme.
Well, people.
It's just more subtly in their.
Well, people are always so shocked about ISIS and the Yazidi. It's so interesting. about ISIS and the Yazidi. I mean, that's what they're called, the Yazidi, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the fact is that if you are a member of ISIS, you believe that you are better than idolatrous pagans, okay? And that Yazidi are idolaters. Therefore, you're better than them. Why? Because you believe in one God, and they're a bunch of idolaters. And the consequences of that is that, yeah, well, we're actually going to go, do whatever we want to them. We'll kill the men and do whatever we want to the women, because we're better than them, because we're monotheists. And this is supported in the concept that the believer in Muhammad is going to heaven and other people are going to hell. Christians had the same concept. I mean, like, Jews were secondary people. Why? Because they didn't believe in Jesus. And there's a story, I've told you guys of this before. There's a Jewish historian of the Middle Ages. I think it was Agus, Jacob Agus, but I'm not 100% sure. But he said one of the things that Jews did that got them into trouble is whenever they came to a new community, they always tried to be nice to the people, right? So they come into a community and they tried to be nice to the non-Jews around. The non-Jews didn't treat them so nicely, and so forth, because the church was telling them that the Jews were Satan's people and they killed Jesus. But what happened was, let's say there was a woman who was going into childbirth, a non-Jewish woman was going into childbirth, and she obviously needs help. And lo and behold, her Jewish neighbor is a midwife, and this woman comes in and basically takes care of everything and helps with the childbirth, and then helps with the kids and taking care of them, and she's wonderful, and so forth and so forth. Now, this non-Jewish woman sees this Jewish woman being a remarkably nice person. Okay? So, what happens? So, she says, well, this is unbelievable what this woman did for me. And like, she's wonderful, she's a nice person. So what do you think starts happening? You've just been taught all your life that the Jews are going to hell. What kind of people go to hell? What kind of people go to hell? Not nice people, right? So therefore, and here's this woman who's remarkably nice. So why's she going to hell? I don't get it. You told me she was Satan's people, but she's wonderful. So she goes to her priest and says, I don't get what's going on over here. You told me those Jews were like really not nice people, and boy, this woman that came through for me. Okay, so what's going on over here? So then the priest starts maybe giving an argument. Well, yeah, that's their plan. They're going to be nice for a little while, and then they'll attack you because Hey, then so the woman. It's a little bit cautious, but then this woman keeps this Jewish woman, next door neighbor, remarkably nice over. So he says, wait a second, what are you talking about? She's a really nice lady. What are you? She's wonderful. She goes back to the priest and says, what are you talking about? Why would this woman go? Why would my friend Sarah go to hell? She's a remarkable person. Okay. She says, whoa, there's something wrong going on here with you. Your whole telling me that she's not nice. This priest then goes to the bishop and say, hey, we got a problem. Those Jews, they're doing what, why can't they just act bad? No, they have to act good, and they have to be nice guys, and they're causing us problems. Why can't they just do what they're supposed to do and act badly? So the priest says, yeah, you're right, so forth and so forth. So what occurred? So he goes to his cardinal, and they got together and said, hey, wait a second, Archbishop, and said, you got to do something to get these Jews starting to act badly. So we need a pogrom. So what happened was that this Jewish historian argues that the Jews tried to gain favor in the world, basically asking the nice guys. What happened? It created anti-Semitism by the church basically being upset by them basically messing up their whole plan. And eventually what?
That kind of pushed them.
Well, the Jews started saying, "Hey, listen, we're being persecuted," and so forth. So eventually, the Jews got kicked out again because they didn't They didn't do what they were supposed to do. They still continue to act like good people. So the fact is that the point is whenever you have group definitions, a lot of times one of the problems of group definitions is the fact that why are you making that group definition? A lot of times it's I'm right, you're wrong, and a lot of times it's to make this distinction, that I'm okay, you're okay, and a lot of times it's there are certain aspects of trying to protect your group definition. In other words, it's like a lot of Jews think that, and like I know a case where there was this Jewish couple, this elderly Jewish couple, who came to talk to me, and we were talking, and they talked about their son who intermarried, and of course they said we were very upset that they intermarried, but then we got to know her, and she's a really nice person, so we learned to love her and take care of her. Okay, so I look at this couple and I say, let me ask you something. Do you think your son was going to marry someone who wasn't going to be nice to him? I mean, what do you think? Right? I mean, like they were shocked. Like what do you think? And I remember reading a book. There's a book, How to Stop an Intermarriage, and it's almost like telling you these scare stories about intermarriage. No, it's basically scare stories. You do this, or something. I don't remember all the details, but I do know that basically it was saying these marriages never work because there will always be this thing and that thing. But the fact of the matter is, something. Fact is that there are many nice non-Jews over there, and there are many Jews who marry a lot of non-Jewish women because they marry a non-Jewish woman because the woman wanted to be nice. Then they'll come up with their own statement that Jewish women are Japs and stuff like that, but that's not true either. But the fact of the matter is, what do you think, that every non-Jewish woman is not a nice person? People, they met a non-Jewish woman, and she had to be a nice person. Okay, so the fact of the matter is that it's a lot easier if you basically define your groups and make the members of the other groups into not standing up to to a certain standard. So it's like,
why is that better?
What? No, that's what I'm saying. It's when I'm saying better, quote unquote. It's not better. It's like, boy, I'll be able to protect my group if, first of all, the only people I relate to are members of my group, and I never run into a member of the group who's actually a nice guy. If I can maintain the fable that every person who's not a member of the group is this or that or this or that, and never do it. So the truth is that the question emerges. So why do you have group definitions? And why do you what? So then what is the importance of your own individual definition? If it's a matter of like, and like I said to that guy, to that professor, I want a certain lifestyle. I want to marry someone who has that lifestyle. I'm not saying better or worse. I'm just basically saying it's a matter of this is what I like, right? But the fact is that what we really do? So then what's the benefit of it? Well, in terms of marriage, yeah, it's in terms of lifestyle. Does it make a difference in terms of, do I have to know what difference does it make in terms of other people? So the point is what really are the purpose of identity? Why do you need to, why do you make identity decisions? What's the significance of it? Why do we say, hey, we want to know if someone's Jewish, not Jewish? We want to know if something is Orthodox, not Orthodox. We want to know if someone's from, not from. What does that term even mean? And that's something that we don't deal with in terms of really understanding the concept of our definitions, right? And that's, I think, what you were asking, right? What are those definitions? And sometimes the definitions that we do apply, are they acceptable definitions? Sometimes we apply certain definitions because they meet a goal, but it's not the goal we really should be striving for.
Who sets the goal? That's also...
Well, that's a question of where you set the definitions, what the definitions are. But right now, it's a matter of trying to figure out what the purpose of these definitions are, and therefore you have some kind of definition that emerges from the system. Now, in halacha does have definitions. Why does halacha have definitions? Now, the truth is that many people are mistaken about halachic definitions. A non-Jew who we have a concept of Chassidim Olam, right? A non-Jew can be, can be as righteous as a Jew, right? Eov, a lot of people say Eov was a non-Jew, right? There's one sheet in the Gemara that says Eov was a non-Jew, right? The fact is that that's an example of the fact that the Jewish, non-Jewish definition doesn't necessarily mean that only Jews can be righteous. The fact is, we also state that non-Jews, that there are Jews who aren't so good, right? The Gemara in Sanhedrin talks about Jews who aren't going to Olam Haba. So few of them, right? But the fact is that just a few. But the fact is that what's the point of it? Then you have to deal with what is the difference between a Jew and a non-Jew. And then you get into issues like it's the difference between born Jewish, not born Jewish. I mean, the fact is, but then you get into definitions of from, not from, or whatever. There was an interesting story that Mark Shapiro brings down from the Sridei Eish. Sridei Eish, Michil Yaakov Weinberg, was one of the Gedolim for the war. He was actually the head of the Hildesheimer Seminary in Berlin. He spent the war in Theresienstadt, and he was totally crushed by what happened in the war. But the fact of the matter is, he was a Gadol Yisrael. He died in the 60s. He lives in Switzerland. So after the war, he lived in Switzerland. He was like, top 10. He also was considered to be an expert in Judaic studies, in academic Judaic studies. He was respected by the university world as well, besides being a Gadol Yisrael and major posek and stuff like that. He had a friend who was a professor at Hebrew Union College in Cincinnati. And this friend, whenever one of his students, Hebrew Union College is the Reform Seminary, so whenever he had a student who was traveling to Israel, he would tell the student to try and go through Switzerland so the student could go meet the Sridei Eish, Michil Yaakov Weinberg. Okay? As a reform student, right? Okay? So Michil Yaakov Weinberg, so some people did this. They fly to Israel, go from Cincinnati to Israel, and they'd stop in Switzerland and they meet Michil Yaakov Weinberg, and then they go on to Israel. So there's a story. Michil Yaakov Weinberg, the Sridei Eish, wrote back to his friend, the professor at Hebrew Union, where he tells you this guy's not, it's like friends with a professor at Hebrew Union, so like, he wrote back to his professor. So Mark Shapiro brings out this case here. He wrote the letter. He wrote back to this guy, and he says, "That student you just sent me, he's a walking Chil Hashem." Okay, he's a walking Chil Hashem. Why is he a walking Chil Hashem? Because he's such a fine, outstanding individual. He's going to go to Yerushalayim, right? He's going to say that he's going to become a Reform rabbi, and all those frum guys in Yerushalayim, compared to him, will look like schwanzes. It's just, this guy is a walking Chil Hashem. He made all the Orthodox look bad because he's a fine, upstanding human being.
Why is that bad then?
No, he was trying to make a statement that the guy is a real nice guy and a real ethical and so forth and so forth. And there's too many Orthodox people who look bad because they compare to this guy. So this guy, and they'll say, look, the Reform rabbi is a really nice guy, and look at these Orthodox. So that's what he says. He's a walking Chil Hashem. He's going to make the Orthodox look bad. Now the truth is is that takes the Sridhar is obviously understood. Individuals, we don't make decisions on this and so forth and so forth. And he felt bad that Orthodox individuals didn't keep the standards that way. The point being is so what's the point of definitions? Now the truth is people do make definitions. Two people see people are Orthodox. I walk around, people think I'm Orthodox, so they're going to make group decisions about Orthodox. That's what a Chillul Hashem is about. Chillul Hashem is the fact that people will see you as a member of a group. So therefore understand that when you do stand out there and you look like a member of a group, recognize that you represent the group. Right? So therefore there's a point. But that's not what we think. We think in group definitions. Okay, that's in terms of my own understanding of me will be identified by others as a member of a group. Right. Therefore it creates responsibilities for me as
that's
being
the way
perceived
it seems to be taught, though, the way it's described.
What?
That Chillul Hashem is the way you're being perceived by others.
And that's correct.
I've had an interesting experience.
That's correct.
When I was in a bar, or I guess maybe a slave club or something, and I wore a kippah, I actually found that the Gentiles who were around me were impressed.
Yeah, I mean the fact is
That I wore a kippah.
Yeah, okay.
They don't see it every day, right? And seeing it especially in that
Who was impressed?
But except there was
if they'd be more like interested or excited.
Because you showed your pride. They respect people showing pride and showing.
The fact of the matter is,
but
but you.
The opposite effect. If he was a modern person who saw you in the club, which he shouldn't, by the way, do. They will think, oh, they're gonna assume the religious people are like.
I know, there's all different sides. I'm trying to make a point.
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
it's 100%. Really? They're not. No, like my opinion, try to blend
Those type
of fact is that wait a second. Excuse me.
Because he shouldn't be there in the first place.
Wait a sec. Let's deal with. Let's deal with the fact is you're raising what you're really raising is the fact that you identify as a member. In other words, when we talk about this issue, we're talking about what's the point of group identity. What does group identity mean? Okay? What are your responsibilities as group identity? All you're doing is raising the fact that there are certain things that you do that identify you as a member of the group, whether you want to present that identity or not. Now, how people will respond to it, that depends upon them. Some people are going to respond to it negatively because they think religious people are bad. Some people will respond negatively because they don't like Jews. Other people will respond with tremendous respect. I've had many situations where non-Jews treat me with respect. Why? Because I'm standing for my religion. I'm standing for or that they perceive me to be an ethical person.
When you present yourself confidently with a
the fact is
strong in that way,
but
in a nice way, then they.
The truth is though, is that it's part of the broader issue here. That's not. I don't want to get caught up in what you're raising is the fact that. Part of the issue of group identity is that you will be defined as a member of the group. Okay? And that puts responsibilities on it. Okay? The point is, and it happens the other way around. The guy who stabbed those people in that gay march in gay parade in Yerushalayim. He made a statement. What?
The guy.
No, woman got killed. No?
Right. Woman got killed.
Actually, the guy did before, and then he was released.
Right. And the fact of the matter is that he believes that he is doing a great thing for his group identity, and this is what Jews should do, and so forth and so forth. And the truth is that, and this leads to part of the issues. The truth is that other people look upon it as very negatively. So his response is, well, all these people look upon it negatively. They're all wrong because they're supporting this terrible behavior. Okay, and even all the Orthodox rabbis who think he's wrong, he's not listening to them either. The point is that gets into where a person has his own self-identity of what the group is about. But what I'm getting at is I think that what I want to just do tonight is just lay out the concept or the basic question, is that why is it that identity is significant? Okay, that's really what I'm trying to raise here, and that was the question I was trying to raise. We can identify ourselves as individuals, and a lot of times in terms of what I like, what I don't like. So if I identify myself as someone who likes golf, I'm not saying a person who hates golf is bad. I'm just saying I like golf. So therefore it's understandable I'm going to hang out with people who like golf because I like to play golf. But if you don't like to play golf, I'm not saying you're a bad person. I'm just saying that hey, listen, we're not going to connect that much because you don't like doing what I do. Okay. But the point is group identity, and identity works a little bit differently. You're making statements about yourself. You're making statements about certain groups. When people generally have made statements about groups, a lot of time it was tied to some aspect of ethnocentricity, right? That's what I was saying beforehand, with whites and blacks, with Europeans and people around the world. I'm better than you. And the fact is that this always raises the issue. And then with your own individual identity, you're trying to say I'm a member of this group. And a lot of times, why are you trying to say you're a member of that group? What are the consequences of being a member of that group? Well, it means you have to recognize that you're going to be representing your group. Yeah. But do you really care about others? Or basically it might be I want to hang out with people who share this group. It might be an idea of insecurity. Since I want to feel good about myself as a member of this group, I'm not going to create challenges by finding other people. So that was the case I was giving you beforehand about it's people.
Like an easy way out.
Right. That's why people basically, they don't want to hear about nice people who are outside the group because
it may affect the whole idea of
why you want to be part of this group. So the point is, though, is that we do have group identity within halacha. First of all, on the most basic level is Jews. So we do have group identity of a distinction between Jews and non-Jews. So why is there that distinction? What does that teach us? And what's the significance of it? And then within Jews, within the Jewish world, we have a distinction between people who are observant and not observant. What's the significance of that distinction? What does it tell us? Or what does it properly tell us? What difference does it make? And what is the significance? And the big problem that you have is the simplest response to those issues emerges with a sense of ethnocentricity or some kind of I'm okay, the other person's not okay. And that can cause problems. The point is, though, is then what really is the benefit of that? Why is it significant to say, I know this person's observant, and it makes a difference if that person is observant? And what's the difference? Okay, or I know the person's Jewish, and makes a difference. Okay, and what is the proper definition of that difference?
These are like two things, but there's so many things involved. Like
yes, absolutely.
It can get very complicated when you're trying to explain, identifying yourself and the categorizing. There's so many factors involved. There's so many. There are, and that gets down to what really is significant. I mean, what really should be significant or not. I know that I have people I've met who are Noahites. Right. Okay, in many ways, I can relate to them on a certain level that I can't relate to other Jews. Why? Because the Noahide shares a certain religious perspective with me, and therefore a certain value system with me, while the non-Jews, even though they're Jewish, may not share the same values.
Non-religious Jews.
If they're non-religious. Now, the truth
you said non-Jews.
Well, I'm sorry, you're right. Non-Jews. The fact of the matter is that the point of sharing values allows me to. What's the point of that? Am I saying this person's better? No, it's a matter. It's again a personal relationship in terms of we have a shared consciousness that allows it easier for me to talk to that person. But the truth of the matter is that may not exist religiously. I have non-religious Jews who I also share certain values with, and therefore I'm able to discuss with them on a different level. The point is that definitions do allow me to transmit a shared starting point. You know what I mean? We can you know, if I'm going to give you a crazy example. If I'm going to a Blue Jay fan club, when I know we were talking to people about, hey, how great, we have the Blue Jays, we're going to share victories, losses, whatever it is, right? If I'm walking into a Yankees fan club, right, I may not feel comfortable because we're not going to share things. So the truth is that the definition will help me in terms of knowing it. But that idea that I share certain starting point is that what's the value of that? Okay, the point is that when you're talking values, you're talking a much more significant shared starting point. That then comes the idea of what's the responsibility that goes with that.
The whole idea of Judaism, the chosen people. So we're religious. We say that regardless if we see there's a value or not, ultimately it happened. Hashem wants us to do it, and now from what He's given us, how are we supposed to look at other people? How are we supposed to actually look at Loco? What's influence in regards to how we're supposed to judge one another? I'm sure there's a myriad of opinions.
Yeah, the fact is
part two.
But that's it's going to be more than part two. The fact is that the point is developing
part 2A.
The consciousness begins with understanding the simple concept of group identity.
The other thing is with group identity, even if, because I know that within Judaism, like, so you'll say that there's a difference between, I guess, xenophobia and elitism, I guess, maybe. Like, it depends, it's on perspective.
Yeah.
Like,
two different things.
Right, so, but like, it's a backlash. So if you say that, I guess I'm a Dodgers fan and I feel the Dodgers are the best, that automatically assumes that the people who aren't Dodgers fans are not.
That's not true. I don't think that's true.
Well, something that...
If you're saying best.
Yeah, then what?
The fact is that it's interesting. I use the sports analogy of how ridiculous it can be. You see soccer fans in Europe actually having fist fights.
Right.
I'm for this fan and for that fan. Over what?
Okay. Better example. Okay, so the way you look at, so if I can say this on camera, I don't know. The way we look at Gentiles, there are two ways. It's either saying that we're better than you.
The fact is that you're right. I've already mentioned that. In any group identity, okay, that has ever existed, okay, one of the consequences of group identity is if you're part of this group, you're better than a person that's not part of this group. Now the point is I'm not going to bring that into the concept of Jewishness right now, because the point is, and this is something the Jews don't want to recognize, if you say I'm better because I'm a Jew, right, therefore you are saying the same language as I'm better than that person because I'm a member of this nation. Fill in the nation. Okay? I'm better than these people because I'm a member of this nation or this group. Well, Christians did that. I'm better than Jews because I'm a Christian. Muslims are doing I'm better than idolaters because I'm a Muslim, right? You want to take another step in terms of national identity?
Right.
Okay? I'm better than Jews because I'm a German.
Right.
Okay? Now, once you get that across, then one of the consequences of that should be, wait a second, okay, I should be really thinking twice before I say I'm better than that person because I'm a Jew. So therefore you should think twice. Okay, because we have been sufferers of people saying they're better than us. Okay? The point is that group identity as subgroups within humanity have a challenge. Now, the point is that means subgroups don't exist. Now, the truth of the matter is an interesting book by Rabbi Ben Zamoga, I think his name is Ben Zamoga, or Rabbi Ben, I think it's Rabbi Ben Zamoga, about Judaism, Christianity, and from the 1800s, where he points out that one of the major arguments of Christianity was universalism. The challenge against Judaism was that Jewish nationalism became, you can only be saved if you're Jewish. Therefore, Christianity. What? The perception of Christianity was that you had to be Jewish, and there was a specific national identity, and Christianity basically said no. We're going. The covenant applies to every human being. So Christianity dropped nationalism as a factor. It was much more universalism in terms of its ethnic definition, in terms of its ethical definitions of universalism. Judaism maintains national identity. Okay? And the fact is, so how does Judaism maintain national identity? Or how does Judaism argue for national identity within an ethical model? Okay? And the fact is that Rabbi develops his arguments. The fact is that Judaism is a different understanding of universalism. That's why when we talk about the universal concept of humanity, we talk about the Shivin Amamim, about the 70 nations. We consider groups joining groups, and therefore the ultimate force of mankind is out of a grouping of nations. In other words, people should first identify as nations, and there's a value in that, and there's a value in national identity, and then there's a value in universalism. The point is, but that goes beyond just Jewish nationalism. Okay, that's why, for example, the concept of war, I think it's a Netziv who argues that war may be a concept even within the Noahide system. Not that he's advocating war, but he's basically understanding that war may be an outgrowth of nationalism or whatever, and that there's a value in nationalism. But the point is that it's a much more complex model to work out this model. So the point is this is all comes out of from group identity. The point is that it's important to understand, and this is what I was trying to say, that a lot of times attempting to find definition of identities and trying to define someone as part of a group or not part of a group has a negative consequence in certain ways, because people generally use that to say, this is good, this is bad, I'm better than you. And the fact is that's an issue. Torah does have group identities, okay? And there are important national definitions. We have to understand. What we have to understand is that we're not trying to find someone as orthodox, non-orthodox. We're not trying to find grouping as orthodox. Is this orthodox, non-orthodox? Just in terms of saying, and therefore I'm better than you. We're trying to understand what is the value of these groupings,
right? And
then we can apply them in a certain way. Okay. Now, does it lead to critiques? Yes. Okay, if I believe that halacha is a method we should use to apply to understand God's will, and I believe that this grouping is not applying halacha, I'm obviously by extension saying therefore this grouping is making decisions not pursuant to God's will. But one of the things about Judaism is it doesn't get into the need to then evaluate the people.
Right.
Okay, Jews basically within halacha.
You're a Jew.
No, not even that. No. That's a problematic statement, because that's on a certain level. The fact of the matter is that the Rishayim who are Jewish. A person who's Jewish in a Russia is much more problematic than a non-Jew. I mean, not even comparable to a non-Jew who's Mechasidim or so. So righteous Gentile. But the point is what I'm getting at is that is that what?
To be very careful.
You have to. These are all concepts that have to be taken very right. But the fact of the matter is, one of the things Judaism does say is that evaluation is not really your evaluation; it's the Kadosh Baruch Hu's evaluation, and that's a very, very different concept. Okay. The point of the matter is, one of the big issues that I find is that everyone is trying to figure out who's going to heaven, who's going to hell. Judaism doesn't do that. Okay, one of the things about Torah is there's concepts not trying to understand what the Ratzon Hashem is, but you know something? Whether someone is held accountable by his or her understanding, that's only in the hands of God. We're not judging other people. Okay, anyway, so this sort of started this topic of group identity, and this is we're going to do for a little while. Okay?